Hello, and welcome to the Garden of Grace devotion, the snow edition. I don't know if you can see it, but there's a little bit of snow up here on the wall behind me. There's even a little bit of snow on my wind chime. There's some snow on the planter. There's some snow on the bench beneath me, but don't worry, I brought a towel. So welcome. Welcome to the Garden of Grace, the snow edition. My name is Pastor Katie, and I'm one of the pastors at Trinity Lutheran Church in Lilburn, Georgia. And today, I have a follow-up devotion for the devotion from last week as well as the sermon. Last week, we focused on this passage from 1 Corinthians chapter 12, where Paul writes to the people in the church in Corinth and tells them they each have been given gifts by God for the common good. We talked about how that is true for each of us. We are children of God, given particular gifts, not to keep to ourselves, but to share for the common good. Last Sunday in the sermon, I talked about how a lot of times we may not see the gifts we've been given. So often they're things that come naturally to us that we don't understand as gifts, but they are. Often we may not use the gifts we've been given. We may not see them. We may not use them. But a lot of times, the best place where we can learn about our gifts and where we can use them is in community with one another. Each one of us bring different things to the table, different ways of thinking, different gifts and skills that all become a part of the whole. Sometimes, though, I think it's helpful for us to hear from someone else that they see a gift in us. Last Sunday, the gospel pairing for the 1 Corinthians 12 text, which was all about how each of the people have gifts and they're to use them for the common good. The gospel pairing was the wedding at Cana. And I went around and around with myself trying to figure out why the people that put the lectionary together, why they would put this passage in 1 Corinthians 12, all about gifts, alongside the passage from the wedding at Cana. And what I came to see was, I believe that these two passages were paired, perhaps to remind us that there was a time that even Jesus wasn't entirely sure about whether or not he was ready to use his gifts. So there was a wedding in Cana. This is the first miracle. It's the first sign that Jesus does in the Gospel of John. There was a wedding on the third day, it said. Jesus' mother was there, and Jesus and his disciples were also invited. So, wedding party. Weddings back then, they would go on sometimes for 7 days. So it was a long bit of festivities. Jesus' mother came to see that the wine had given out. They had run out of wine. And she tells Jesus about it. She said, they've run out of wine. And Jesus responds to her, and he says, woman, what does that have to do with us? Sounds like a they problem. What does that have to do with you or me? Mary doesn't even acknowledge his response. She just looks at the people who were serving and says, do whatever he tells you. So Jesus does. He tells them to fill the purification jugs with water and then to draw some out, and indeed it has become wine. There are so many different things about this story that we can explore, but today I find myself interested in what appears to be the fact that even Jesus didn't really step up to use his gifts straight away in this situation. It took his mama saying, son, they've run out of wine. Asking him to help, to use the gifts he'd been given. The same woman, his mother Mary, of course, had already had a miraculous journey. She spoke with the angel. She visited Elizabeth when she was pregnant and had the baby leap in her womb. She was no stranger to God's incredible work. So that day in Cana, she told him. She told him what was going on. And he used his gifts and did something about it. Again, there's so much more to that story, but for today, I'm going to pay attention to how Jesus was invited by his mother to do something. And he used his gifts and he helped. I wonder how many of us just need an invitation or an affirmation. I regularly journey with people in ministry who don't seem to be aware of the incredible gifts they've been given for listening, for sharing, for journeying alongside, for encouraging, for organization, for wisdom, for praying. So many things I think can get in the way. We wonder sometimes, could I really make a difference? I don't want to get in the way of somebody else using their gifts. Maybe what I have to offer isn't as good as somebody else's. Or maybe we don't even recognize our gifts in the first place. As I was coming out here to do this, offer this devotion, I thought about this Miami Dolphins toboggan. And I thought, that's a pretty good example of a way to wonder about how something might be used. How often would a Miami Dolphins toboggan be used in Miami? Yet I'm finding it pretty valuable today. I want to encourage you to think about using the gifts you've been given. I want to encourage you to think about reaching out to someone in your life who has touched you, who has said or done something meaningful, or somebody that you've seen the gifts of God at work in them, and encourage them, name them. So-and-so, I felt like I really saw God's gifts at work in you when you such and such. You could say, I just wanted to share with you that my life has been blessed by what I see as your gift of listening, or whatever it may be. You may offer them encouragement that you don't know that they need. And it may even help them to use the gifts they've been given in a new way. So like this Miami Dolphins toboggan, should you find yourself wondering when you might be of any use, Know that God is at work in you and through you. You have been given special gifts. May God give you the courage to use them. May God give us the ability to encourage one another and to name the gifts that we see in the lives of those around us. Thanks be to God, and may God's peace be with you today and always. Amen.